Good morning. All right, so yesterday got my first rejection from one of the 9 TEDx conferences that I've applied to. And it didn't feel good, and I popped on and I got on to share with all of you what that felt like and process in real time and be honest about my journey. And I really did want to go on to share some of the notes from the conversations that I've been having, these interviews I've been doing around failure. So far I have interviewed 9 women as of last night. And I've got interviews on the books today. So, I'm just trucking along with these interviews. And it's funny because even after the interview happens, a lot of people will have these thoughts. They'll keep thinking about it. And they'll want to talk to me or reach out to me and share more about what they've been noodling on since that conversation. So failure is a sacred right. Now, even after last night, it didn't feel good. Like, there was no good feeling in hearing, yeah, thanks for applying. We had a lot of applications, not what we're looking for. Or, we picked other people. That doesn't feel good, ever. If it's something you really want, which it's something I really want. I have an intended goal. When you don't meet your intended goal by Webster's definition, that is failure. Failure is neither positive nor negative. Failure is neutral. Failure is a part of the success process. This is a process. It doesn't now. If we want to make it a success, we have to honor the process. We have to allow it to be a sacred right in the success journey. And so I need to make space to feel those feelings, to grieve that first rejection. I need to think about maybe what possibly went right, what went wrong, what I'm learning in the process, and I need to have the right community around me. Those are things that are integral to taking failure and making it the fuel for success. Now, what I will tell you, so many of you commented, watched, and encouraged me to keep going. I appreciate you. Everyone that is watching and paying attention and encouraging me on this journey, I appreciate you so much. What I will tell you is, ain't no failure gonna stop me. That's the whole point. We don't get to, there was never, ever, ever a question of should I keep going. I just want to make that very clear. So keep the encouragements coming, but know that I don't intend to let failure number 1 be the reason why I stop this journey. Absolutely not. I am showing in real time that we only get to the goal when we embrace the failure. So I'm going to practice what I preach with this process, and I will be finding a way to honor those feelings. So some folks, because I was saying that I felt like that that was one of those times where I felt like I was a failure. I felt not good enough. My feelings are not wrong or bad. Now, they might not be correct as far as it's that's not proportional. The feelings that come up in that are not proportional to what happened, right? Because we assign something to them, which is what I was doing yesterday. So that's something super interesting to think about, and I will find a way to honor that. I don't exactly know what that is yet, but in the process, in the success process, sharing with the community, sharing with all of you is part of the success process. Community is really important. So those are some, I know that as I fail, don't hit the said goal, failure, that is what will propel me forward to the next thing. If I honor the failure as a sacred right and I keep going, which I have every intention to do. And I do need to process, so I will also be doing that. And if you have any ideas of how I should process that, I am open to hear your ideas. Now, some notes. I went through my notes this morning. I've interviewed 9 people so far on this topic of failure, like I said. And some themes, some really interesting stuff is coming up around the idea of failure. So first thing, this theme is coming up with almost everyone, is that community dissolves the sting of failure. Truth, right? Like, community can help us, the right community, not just any community, but the right community can help us process the sting of failure. Yeah, I also had it's funny, as I'm talking about these things, I'm having these revelations of other past failures that I wasn't even thinking about when I first started this. But like, when I was in grade school, when I was younger, y'all, I am so bad at test taking. Tests, standardized tests. It's like this. I think about people, like, I think about things from every possible angle. I overanalyze everything. It is what makes me so empathetic. It is, like, I've realized over the years, when I should be angry at someone, I can see sides. Like, I can see other people's sides so clearly because I'm great at looking at things from all of the different angles. That does not make me a good test taker, right? So I am really great at failing at tests on even things that I actually know the answer on, because I'm like, well, do they mean this or do they mean that? Because if they mean it like this, it goes like that. So tests. Also, another failure that I thought about is I used to do theater, and I worked lights for one play we did. I think it was my sophomore year. It was The Crucible, and I was the person that was working lights, and I jumped a light cue real fast at the end, this real dramatic lighting, and I fucked it up so bad. And the director was so angry with me. Ooh, man, and he laid into me on that one. It was a major learning experience. I cried in the bathroom almost all night on that one in the Ohio theater. So silent, kind of sad failure. But it's funny thinking about these things. Well, I got better at doing lights after that because I wasn't going to jump the light cue faster than I needed to. Like, my anxiety brain kind of took over on that one. But yeah, so it's funny what things, like with the test taking thing, I hadn't even thought about that. Even though it was a huge failure through a majority of my life, I had kind of blocked it out for this topic, which is ironic and funny. So it's like I'm uncovering layer after layer of this. Okay, so a lot of what people are saying, a theme that keeps coming up, is that people really are starting to view not listening to their inner knowing as failure. And often, once we start, like Abigail Dowd said, once we start listening to our inner knowing, we start doing things that might outwardly look like failing to society, right? And I would argue to who, maybe that's the image we have of what society is telling us is failing. But it's not necessarily reality, right? And like, this neither positive nor negative thing. But it's like tapping into our own inner knowing and acting from that might look outwardly like failure, but that's actually success. And a lot of times when people are doing things that look like success, that's actually failing because they're not listening to the inner knowing, which I love that component of this topic so much. And I'm curious what you all think about that. And where has that been true in your own life too? Okay, so there is this process, and I want to reiterate, I'm finding that a lot of people, in order to use failure as a sacred right and let it become the fuel of our success, we have to make space to feel our feelings and to grieve. Really, really important. And you can't really rush that process. You have to allow that process. You have to honor the feelings that are coming up, and yeah, you just have to honor it, and you have to acknowledge the feelings. And ooh, that is uncomfortable. But if we don't, we can't get to that place of like really evaluating what went right, what went wrong, what we would do like in the future, what we wouldn't do. Jordan Lazinski of She-Wolf, she's such a business brain minded person. She's phenomenal. And she's like, yeah, when I fail, I have to do a SWOT analysis of that failure. And I just thought that was so brilliant. I love the idea of doing a SWOT analysis around our failures, like strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So what were those combinations of things that caused the failure, and how can you do it differently going forward? Okay, and then community dissolves failure. So wherever you want to bring community in on that process, really important. But here's the key: you have to do it with the right community, which might mean you need to find a new community. In this process, not everyone needs to do this, but a lot of people, after a foundational failure, a failure that changes the trajectory of your life, they've had to leave. They've had to create a new home, go somewhere else. And a lot of that has to do with shedding the identity that other people have put on you, which I think is super interesting. And I can relate to that. I mean, I didn't fail, but I had to create my own identity. I had to find my own community here in Greensboro. I've been here for 20 years now, but I left Ohio. I always knew I was going to leave Ohio. So we need to, when we fail, if we treat failure as a sacred right, if we honor it, it propels us. We can let it propel us into the next thing, or the next iteration of the thing that we were working on. Jordan Lazinski called it the practice test. Every time we fail, it's as if we just had a practice test. I love that thinking. Now, here's something that's starting to come up as well in the interviews, is that there have been a few people that have said or emailed me afterwards to say that it's very difficult to decouple anxiety and failure. So what, is it really failure, or is it anxiety? Is it fear of failure, or is it anxiety? So that's something coming up. And then one person I interviewed yesterday, or a couple days ago, said that our society views life as success and death as failure. And I think she's right. I don't know what to do with that. But we don't always honor death. We resist death the way we resist failure. And she talked about how her dad had cancer, and the chemo was it was not working. It was not working. And so a lot of people viewed him stopping the chemo treatments, stopping the fight, as failing, when really it was success. Back to that inner knowing thing of embracing what life you have left and taking control of the process of dying, kind of. So that was super interesting. And often we talk about, we talk about doctors, for example, as failing to cure someone. And so in this way, the medical system even turns us into fearing it not working out, whereas maybe there's a different way to look at it. And this is interesting. She argues that fear of failure is tied to capitalism, and that the more afraid we are, the more we of failing, the more we buy, because we think we need to get everything right on the first try. Yeah, that's smooth sailing. So failure is absolutely transformational if we have the right mindset about it. You know, if we go with like the Carol Dweck, the growth mindset. So I just want to reiterate that, when I talked yesterday about not getting my first rejection letter, or, I don't even know what else to call it, the "you're not in" letter, that I'm definitely going to honor that because I'm practicing what I preach. And I will allow this process to teach me and transform me, because that's how failure becomes success. And like, when there's something you really want, if you don't give up, it doesn't mean that you didn't fail along the way. It is those failures that took you to the success. So I hope that in this research that I'm sharing with folks, in this process, what I'm encouraging, what I want all of you to get out of all of this is, I'm hoping that like you'll see that failure becomes success. It does. Failure will become success. And not reaching our goals repeatedly is what takes us to success if we're willing to iterate. So I appreciate everyone so much who's been encouraging me, who's been watching, who has been commenting, who's been sharing their story, their thoughts on failure. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. I want to hear from all of you. I'm so grateful for everyone. I'm so grateful for this community. And thanks, Maddie, for listening and paying attention. And, I know that this is a process. Failure is the success process. And failure, these repeated failures, it really distills down. It strips away the unnecessary, and it brings us to success in the long run. So thank you all so much for watching and paying attention today. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Talk to y'all soon. Bye.